What's up, Inkie peeps? It's Adele from Inkie Quill, and today I've got a double process video using the May Printables. I will admit I was feeling very indecisive when I filmed this. It was my only video that I filmed. It was the first video of the day, and I find that the first video that I film after having the weekend not filming, I get very indecisive and I just can't decide on what I want to do, which is very opposite to my usual stick and plonk everything everywhere type of mentality. So I originally wanted to use the blue flower, but then I looked at it and thought maybe I want to use the white background flower. The blue one is printed on a glossy photo paper because I prefer to print my printables on the glossy photo paper because my printer, I'm having issues with it. I'm in the market for a new one. I've been looking for a while and trying to figure out which one I want to get. But I find that it prints the colours very muted if I print it on white cardstock, whereas if I print it on glossy photo paper, of course, it's a lot more vibrant and glossy. So I had all the flowers out. I didn't know which one I wanted to use. All I knew is that I wanted to use at least one of them. So I had a bit of a rest from trying to figure out what one to decide on, and I'm just matting my photo with some tissue paper. I didn't want to do too many paper layers for this one. I wanted the focus to really be on the embellishments and the bright colours that were in them. Then I grab a doily, and I cannot decide if I want to use the doily or not. Do you guys ever have those days when you just struggle to make decisions? It was just very tricky. I am on my last legs of tape. I also broke my ATG during this video, but I managed to fix it off camera. I just was not having luck just with my supplies. We have those days, and I think it's important to remember that not every crafting session will be perfect and will run from A to B exactly as how you think it will go. This one did take a bit of a turn that I didn't expect, but we got there in the end. I stuck down the blue, and then I remembered that I had been hoarding this crepe paper, the Valentine's collection that came out from this year. It had some giant chipboard. Like, look at this piece. It's almost as big as my freaking photo. I struggle to use pieces that large, but I thought the colours were just perfect for this photo, and the boy was on the left side and the girl was on the right side, and it just worked out perfectly. So I decided to include that in this layout as well. And then I wanted to think about a title because I wasn't sure if I wanted to use some thickers for a title or have a go at using some of the collage piece pieces for this month. And so I played around with a few of those, figuring out what to do. When I originally sat down to do this, or stood up, I stand up when I scrap. When I originally stood up to do this layout, I was going to do some sort of mixed media in the background, but then I thought that because a lot of the embellishments already have that mixed media element to them with the brush strokes and the painty bits and pieces, I thought that they would pop better on a white background. And I'm glad I chose the white background. This paper I have been hoarding a little bit because I knew that it would make a good background paper. It's I think it's from the Cocoa Vanilla Boys Rule collection, and it's just so crisp and white. I'm having issues lately with it's just me being a bit particular, I think, but with the types of whites in scrapbooking paper. Does anyone else get frustrated when they have a white item and then grab like a crepe paper's version of white? I can mix white and cream, no problem, but there's something about the crepe paper's white that just doesn't mix. I can't make it mix. Let me know your tips if you are finding difficulty with the same thing. It's driving me a little bit bonkers, and there are a few papers that I think I'm going to destash because I just can't make them work. So I grabbed the sticker sheet, La La Love, that's the collection. I grabbed the sticker sheet from this collection as well because it was right next to me, and I'm just trying to figure out, I wanted to put a little bit of journaling on here, but I didn't know where. I couldn't really write directly onto the background just because there wasn't really any space to, so I decided to grab my good old paint and just do a few like large brush stroked lines. And right now it's looking very, very blue. It's standing out very strongly compared to the rest of the layout. So while my paint was dry, I knew I had to dry it off with the heat gun, so I thought, let's add some blue splatters. So I grabbed my Jane Davenport watercolors, and they came out a little bit dark, so I got a little piece of paper towel and I just dabbed off some of the colour a little bit to make them paler, and I'm just splatting it here, there and everywhere. And that splatters really do help to tie in colours around your layout and just kind of make the colours fit in a little bit more and not stand out as much as that blue paint first did. When I first did it, I went, ooh, she blue. But I made it work, I think. And then by adding the white gel pen over the top, of course, that also helps fade it in a little bit and ties the white pen in with the white background. And it just, they're all working together like one big, happy, scrappy family. I did speed this bit up. I don't write this fast. This is 4 times fast. But I just did a little bit of journaling about how rarely Aaron and I take selfies together nowadays. Most of my camera roll is just filled, of course, with Archie, and the occasional like breakfast or meal photo, but I don't get a lot of photos of just the two of us. And these photos were this photo was taken, I think this was, actually I remember, this was the day of Aaron's work Christmas party where he had a jolly good time. It started at midday and I picked him up at about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Maybe I picked him up at, no, it was later than that. It was probably about 7 o'clock. Archie had his Christmas party for his daycare the same day. So I went to Archie's and didn't have as jolly time as Aaron. But needless to say, I'm glad that it was a Friday because we had a nice slow weekend the next day because we're not as young as we once were. So you can see there, I totally failed at doing the diddly border, but you know my motto, peeps, you can always cover it up, and that I did. Luckily it wasn't too large, so I just grabbed one of the circle embellies from this month and popped it over the top, and you wouldn't even know. A man riding by on a horse wouldn't be able to tell. But I really like this photo. I know this sounds silly, but I actually made an effort to do my hair and face. These days it's tricky, especially when you're working from home. 4 days a week, Archie goes to daycare and I work from home, and then sometimes my parents have him on the 5th weekday. So I don't see anyone or communicate with anyone or go anywhere or do anything. So quite often my hair is in what I like to call the mum bun, and I'm not looking as pretty and perky as I do in this photo. So yeah, it was nice to actually take a photo when I felt all right looking. All right. So this layout's all done, and now we're going to move on to some card making. Now I set myself a bit of a challenge because, as you know, card making isn't my forte, and I wanted to make 3 cards in 15 minutes. So I set a timer, and after I'd picked the paper, because I knew picking the paper was going to take me a little while, but I just grabbed the Sunny Days 6x8 paper pad, and these paper pads are great for card making, I just realised, because when you fold it in half, it's a nice sized card. So I grabbed several papers that I thought could work, and I knew I wanted to make 3 cards, so I thought it's easier. I find it easier to kind of hone down the I guess you could say the finalists for my paper backgrounds or my paper choices, and then go through them. And I feel not as overwhelmed when I've got a smaller selection to make the final pick from. So if you are feeling yourself overwhelmed in your craft room with choosing papers for something, grab 10. Just go to your stash, think about what project you want to do. If you're doing a scrapbook layout, look at your photo and see if there's any like colors or textures or things that remind you of the photograph, or if it's a themed photo like Christmas, grab Christmas themed ones. But I try to make a selection and then remove the rest of the papers, get them out of my eyesight so I don't get distracted, and then just pick from those final 10. So this first one, I've rediscovered my doilies. I had forgotten a little bit about the dear old doilies, and I recently made a layout, and this little pencil case that I keep them in was still on my desk, and so I thought I'd grab them. I liked this idea of having a double doily, but it wasn't working for me. It wasn't making sense. And you can see on the back of that cluster of flowers, I nearly had a disaster then, nearly dropped the doily on the flowers. Off camera, I have actually attached craft foam to the back of both of the flower clusters, just to give them a little bit of 3D-ness and make them pop a little bit. For this one, I was tempted to do one of the large titles or one of these smaller brush lettered titles. I was going to do this Oh Happy Day, but then in the end I really like the way that the blue laughter and love circle kind of matched with the blue of the leaves. I felt like this was a little too busy, so I did just go with the blue in the end. And I did something that I've been wanting to try for a while. I'm obsessed with glossy accents at the moment. I've been filming YouTube videos over the last week, and I think I filmed all of my Inkie Quill YouTube videos up until October, I think. I did a big scrappy sesh, and you'll see the glossy accents creeping in those layouts as they come out and are scheduled. But every time I use it, I've been using it on wood veneer, which you'll also see in this video too. But I wanted to try it on paper and see what it would look like, and oh boy, I love the result of it. It's something that I think I'm going to become obsessed with, because it just, I don't know, sometimes things get a little too papery, like all of the different papery layers get too papery together, if that makes sense. I hope it does. And it's nice to have like a different texture in there. So by having something glossy, like the glossy accents over the top of the little laughter and love circle, it breaks it up a little bit and makes it a bit more interesting. So this, I think, glossy accents is a great cheap investment if you don't have a large scrap stash as well, and you want to experiment with different textures and kind of fake 3D embellishments. It's just a nice little addition to your page. So I wanted to do some sprinkly bits. I've made it my mission in 2019 to try and use up some of my enamel dot stash, because I keep opening new packets and leaving the half-finished abandoned packets to the side, and I'm really trying to go back and visit those half-done ones. Adding some Heidi Shine, shake, 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 shake your Heidi Shine. I didn't really shake it. Shake your Heidi Shine. It must have still been shaken from the layout, I'm hoping. It didn't give me the big oil ring that it often does when I don't shake it properly, so it must have been shaken enough. So this next one, I will admit that I purposely picked this strange mustardy olivey colour. It's not quite mustard, but it's not quite olive. It's kind of in between, and I did pick it because I knew it matched the gold background of this flower cluster, and I did think I would never use this paper on a scrapbook background. So card making is a nice way to use those sneaky papers that you want to use, but you don't think you will reach for freely in your scrapbooking. So this time I wanted to add some wood veneer, so I grabbed a couple of different sized hearts. These hearts I have got over the years. I think the big ones and the middle-sized one are actually from eBay. And then I grabbed a Posca paint pen and I'm just colouring the hearts in. I probably should have waited until the glue was a little bit more dry. Would have been a bit easier because they were kind of moving around a little bit. Then I grabbed my glossy accents and I did all of that over the top. I will say that as I've said before, it takes forever to dry. So this isn't a technique to do on a card that you need to give like that day. Like you can't do it on a card that you're about to run out of the house with to someone's birthday party. It's a type of card that you need to make, I would say, at least a day in advance, because that stuff takes a while to dry. So then I just wanted to add another little gold element because I love the gold leaves in the floral cluster, and I just felt like it needed a bit of shininess. And then just so that all of my things don't fall off the page, just like I said in a recent video, I was listening back to it, I'm like, I can't believe I said that. I said that it was like fencing in cattle, doing a doodly border, but it is. I'm fencing in my heart cattle and making sure it doesn't fall off the page. And then we're on to the last one. This is I really like this PL card that I made. And my main intention when I started making this card is I was going to write happy in between, in my scripty font, in between the first two, the gap in between the first two lines, and then birthday in the second gap. But then I realized that I had this word, and so I decided to use it instead. I thought it was going to fit across the card, but alas, it was too wide. But luckily I was able to snip it and separate the two words, and I'm just really roughly cutting this out. The trick to fussy cutting for me is to use big scissors. I find it so much easier to use big scissors than little scissors, and I also keep my scissors straight, if that makes sense, and just move the paper instead. If you move the scissors, it's a lot harder on not only your wrist, but it's not as easy to get like clean curves when you need to go around letters and things like that. So I'm just sticking those down, and this card was the quickest out of the three of them. And around the edge I'm just writing the happy birthday lyrics. I did leave, I'm not sure who this is for, it will be probably for, I'm just thinking of the next male birthday in my family. I think it's Aaron's brother is the next one. So I left off happy birthday dear blank, and I'll fill that in. And then I realized I did the love heart upside down, and that annoyed me. So then I grabbed a gold one and just covered it up, because there's always an option for that. And then this card is done with some Heidi shine. So the cards are really easy to put together, and I had a lot of fun this week. I can't wait to have a go at trying to finish my December 2018 PL with this collection. I am so close to finishing that album, so very close, and then I will definitely do some flip throughs over here on Patreon, and there's lots of layouts that I don't think either have been filmed and aren't released yet, or I created off camera in those flip throughs. So I'm hoping to have 2018 albums done by the end of, actually let's say by mid-June. I'm hoping to have them done by mid-June. Let's see how I go, and then I can start this year, because hey, you got to start sometime. All right peeps, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.